Hello all. The fifth question. It's very short, but just my ideas on this, on the question of what accent should we use when we speak English in Sri Lanka. Right now, this won't even be an issue for those of you who are bilingual from very young ages. But when you're an adult and when you're trying to learn, especially in a situation where there are tuition teachers teaching a very specific accent on purpose, this question does become valid, because what we then should ask is, what is the ideal or what is the model we should follow if we are teaching or trying to learn English as a second language. Now I run very close to preaching to you or telling you like kind of being prescriptive and saying this is what you should do, and I'm always very weary of coming across like that, because it's finally personal choice. And what I find personally very irritating may not necessarily be the case outside. So be warned that this is just my idea on what I think should be the model kind of accent you should follow. And you're free to disagree or, just disregard what I say. But I do feel that the accent has to be thought of seriously, simply because we seem to have a set category of jokes simply to laugh at what we call the wrong accent of second language users. Some people call it the note-pot accent, tied to the fact that the sound the phonetic that the sound is not found in the Sinhala sound system. And we don't have the F. We didn't used to, now we do, but some people still don't accept it. F and P. We use P when it's supposed to be F. So that's another kind of a standard joke. And we have overcorrection then. Some Sinhala speakers who are learning English with difficulty use F when there should be a P. For example, they might say faddy field when it's paddy field. So overcorrection and all of it linked to probably nervousness and the desire to show that English wasn't learned later with difficulty, and that becomes important as our discussion on Katikavata with Katikava with Dinali Fernando showed. It's always connected to class and class to wealth and inferiority and everything else. So the accent does become a very sensitive issue. And therefore, it's possible that some of you are listening, wondering what you should be teaching. And if you're an adult listening to me, you might be wondering what accent you should hold as the ideal. So my personal idea, and this is personal, is that you might find it useful to aim at the English that Sri Lankans who have been dealing with English for a long time, who write academically in English, or who are teaching English in universities might be using. And here, I mean, the names that come to mind is Professor Arjuna Parakrama, Professor Harshana Rabukwala, Professor Nelufa Dimel, and there are many others, who are very much involved in the language in Sri Lanka. And when they speak, if you can listen to them, they don't have any kind of foreign accent. They speak in what is called the Sri Lankan standard accent. So there's a Sri Lankan standard accent as well. Of course, this is not completely written in stone, but what I would call it is what the accent people who normally use English very often in their lives use. Unfortunately, it's difficult to access them most of the time because they are hardly ever in the media, not the main media, but some of them are on YouTube. So you can find them out and listen. And they don't try to use an accent which is foreign to their environment, right? So I would say try to aim at that. So the corrections or the changes you might have to make is if you have, problems with pronouncing o, or, those, for, per, deal with that. And naturally, you'll be making mistakes while you come towards proficiency. That's natural. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, we laugh at mistakes like that. We have set jokes on bad pronunciation. I have publicly fought when some writers have used that accent to show that now a Sri Lankan who doesn't know English very well is talking. And in fact, they've got laughter from the audience. And I often think it's maybe because they are not really exposed to the people I am exposed to, who know that very many young people keep silent and won't try to use what you call substandard language because they know they get laughed at. So for me, that laughter is cruel, and it's not understanding. It's done through not understanding the social conditions of English language learning and teaching in Sri Lanka. But let's leave that aside. Unless you're somebody who has been laughing, then please rethink that laughter, because it can actually affect someone's life practically by keeping them silent. Laughter is not just for English. I mean, if you look at a play like Sergeant Nalatham, we laugh at the Tamil accent as well. So because I'm in the field of teaching English as a second language, I see the harm it can do to getting young people who are very sensitive to laughter, speaking maybe in a substandard way till they achieve proficiency. Because once you make them feel ridiculous and you shut them down, that journey of trying to talk and therefore learning gets cut short. So do rethink if you are one of those people who have thought laughter was just a joke. Just a joke is another thing I won't get in there, but just jokes can be quite harmful. So if you're a student or a teacher trying to figure out what accent to teach, adults, it applies mainly to adults, because if you're a child acquiring the language, you would have already got it in a natural way. So if you are someone in America learning English, naturally you get the American accent, right? But if you're someone trying to teach adults in Sri Lanka, try to emulate or follow the Sri Lankan standard accent. Okay. Now, some people have asked me directly, why are you looking down on an American or British accent or Australian? Because those are the people who they are the ones speaking English. They are the owners of it. Right? And it's too long a lecture for me to explain how now this belongs to everyone and all that. But their point is, why are we speaking Sri Lankan English our way? Because there's nothing called our way in Sri Lanka. We are supposed to deal with foreigners. If you are dealing with foreigners, yes, of course, try to follow the accent, because they naturally won't, like, for example, many Americans may not understand how I speak, because I'm speaking in a Sri Lankan accent. So if you're dealing with foreigners, go ahead, change it so that they understand you. But most of us deal with English within the country. We don't really work with foreigners. So for everyone to get a foreign accent, if they don't even deal with people, I would say that's a bit silly. And it is also, and this is what I need to show you, those who try to put an American accent or Australian or British might be showing those who actually know English very well that they have learned with difficulty, because that is kind of an overcompensation. So if people not put English is being laughed at, I mean, naturally you'll try to do everything to show that I don't deserve to get laughed. But then you might go to the other extreme and try to show that I'm way beyond all this. See, I have this accent. Be careful, because the message you give then might not be the message you think you're giving. So using American, British, Australian accent within a Sri Lankan context has other kind of classist issues which you actually might not think you're projecting, right? So it's a very short lecture to talk about the way I feel about this. It's not necessarily the way most of you might feel. Media itself sometimes is very harmful, because they do project people, possibly from abroad, I don't know, who have a very kind of a different accent from the Sri Lankan standard one. Not all, some do. Right? So the problem is, media is a very powerful thing in Sri Lanka. People do tend to follow what they think is right. So that's why I thought I'd put this out on YouTube. If you need to follow, at least my opinion, of people you might have as a model, stick to those who are talking with the Sri Lankan standard accent, and those might be the English department lecturers who write work, use English very much, because they hardly ever use a foreign accent simply to impress anyone. Thank you very much.